Hi, welcome to 150 Licks You Must Know. Now, this series of lessons started out as 50 licks and that rapidly went up to 100, and now it's round about 150, although there'll probably be more if you include all the variations we're going to look at least. These licks are designed for the intermediate player, especially the player that wants to add a lot more licks to their playing. So for instance, it's especially recommended for if you've followed FretHub so far and you've worked your way through levels 1 to 10, then this series of lessons is for you, because you may have formed the band and you want to kind of go out and play some solos, and you'll learn a heck of a lot from this, because a lot of these licks are very commonly used. Some of them are just stuff that I happen to do. Some of them are kind of in the style of other players, but most of them are very commonly used licks. They're rock licks generally, rock/rock and roll licks, but they have their roots in the blues, so they fit into a lot of styles of music. And we're going to be working in a variety of keys. A lot of these licks are mainly going to be based around the minor pentatonic scale, the blues scale and the major pentatonic scale, but with a few extra notes thrown in on some occasions. We're going to be working in the key of E minor, A major, G minor, but it's important to know that these licks work in any key. If you know your way around the neck, especially if you've studied the Learning the Neck module, that would be to your advantage. We'll have a recap on the scale positions anyway, but with the exception of the licks that include open strings, because some of the ones we're going to look at in E have open strings, and also in G minor. With the exception of those, they're all transposable. We can play them in any key. So what you should ultimately gain out of this is just a whole kind of lick bag of stuff that you can throw into solos, and it will also help you recognize other people's solos if you're trying to kind of transcribe stuff, because you know there's a wealth of knowledge here. So without further ado, let's get tuned up and we'll get started with the first lick. So we're going to start in the good old-fashioned key of E minor. We're going to be using the E minor pentatonic and E blues scales initially, starting with position 1. Now we will include some first position licks a bit later on, but we're going to be starting in around the 12th position, around the 12th fret. So this is position 1, just the recap of the E minor pentatonic scale, and it sounds like this. So hopefully you should know this by now, but in case you don't, it's 12-15 on the low E, 12-14 on the A string, 12-14 on the D, 12-14 on the G, 12 to 15 on the B, and 12 to 15 on the high E. And we're also going to be working with the E blues scale. Now the difference between the blues scale and the minor pentatonic is there's an extra note added, which is the flattened fifth. So in this case we've got 12 to 15 on low E, same as the minor pentatonic, and now we go 12, 13, 14, just that extra note, which is the blue note, the flattened fifth, on the A string, 12, 14 on the D, 12, 14, 15 on the B string, on the G string. Fingering is optional. You can either use your first, second or third fingers, or your first, third and fourth. And then we've got 12, 15 on the B, 12, 15 on the high E, as in the minor pentatonic scale. So some of the licks we're going to look at in this series of lessons you may already know, because we may have covered them in some of our earlier lead guitar modules, for instance in levels 5, 8 and 9 I believe, but learning them in this context will just, you know, give you more kind of licks to play with in your own solos. So we're going to look at this lick first of all. I'm going to play it fast. Just with a bend at the end there, just to kind of finish it off. Now that's a very fast hammer-on, pull-off, repeating lick that you hear countless guitarists use. You know, Jimmy Page springs to mind immediately. Slash. Some of the licks we're going to be looking at are kind of straight out of Freebird by Lynyrd Skynyrd, because that contains a lot of these kind of stock licks. So it's a very fast kind of repeating lick. I'm going to slow it down break it down. So what it is, starting on the B string, on the 12th fret, so you pick down, hammer on with your 3rd finger to 15. So start on the B string on the 12th fret, pick down, hammer on to the 15th fret, pull off, back to 12 again. So that's what you got so far. And then cross over with the 2nd finger to the 14th fret on the G string, and then the whole thing repeats. So it's only 4 notes, but when you repeat it, when you cross over to the B string again, it's important to now attack the B string with an upstroke, because there's a little bit of alternate picking in there, because you're going pick, hammer, pull, sorry, pick, yeah, hammer, pull, pick, pick. So if you were to do 2 downstrokes, I mean, you could sweep it, but that's a whole different technique. So you're picking down, hammer, pull, down, up, hammer, pull, down, up. So you pick, it's just doing this, basically. And with all of these, it's important to start out at a slow speed. If if your fingers aren't kind of, you probably won't be able to play it that fast straight off, unless you've been playing for a while. So with a metronome, for instance, if we were to start at 60 beats per minute, and that's 2 notes to every beat. And then just work up the tempo gradually as well. Don't go up in too high increments at a time. So I just shifted it up to 65. And once you're comfortable with that tempo, I find it really hard to hear the metronome actually at the moment. But see, that's a little bit faster. And then as soon as you're comfortable with that, just keep moving it up in small increments, and then, or you can just sit there in front of the TV if you like, and just before you know it, your fingers will strengthen, and you'll be flying away. Now, fingering, I said, is optional. I tend to use the 1st, 3rd and 2nd fingers for this, just because it's easier to, when you come off this lick, to bend up from 15 to 17, just to add that kind of round off the phrase there. Oh, excuse me, there's a bit of an open string there. But also another thing that's worth bearing in mind with all of these licks is your pick attack, your dynamics. You can start out picking quite lightly, and then dig in with a pick more, and make it light again. You're not slowing it down, you're still playing at the same tempo. And that just adds more to your kind of dynamic range. So moving on with this, based on the same lick, you can apply this to different parts of the scale now. So if we, actually, let's stick to what we've previously done, but we're going to add a note from the blues scale. So we've got... So that is basically, it's a similar, the notes on the B string are exactly the same. So you've got 12, 15, 12, remember to hammer and pull. So pick, hammer, pull. Instead of going 14 on the G string, go 15. So that's that flattened 5th from the blues scale. And you can actually, alternate between the two. Another place you can play this. So we're still within the scale, we're just using different notes on different strings within that scale. So that's what I did there. I went 12 on the G string, 12, 14, that's a hammer to 14, pull off to 12, and then 14 on the D string. And once you've learnt that, you can, play it an octave higher, so you can go. So that is exactly the same thing but an octave higher. We're actually moving into position 2 of the E minor pentatonic scale. Just to recap on that, if you haven't done the Learn in the Neck module, we've got 15, 17 on the low E, 14, 17 on the A string, 14, 17 on the D, 14, 16 on the G, 15, 17 on the B string, 15, 17 on the high E. But we're just using the top 2 strings of that position. So what that is, we're going 15, 17, so pick 15, hammer to 17, pull off to 15, and then we've got 17 on the B string. And just repeat. Not all the licks we're going to look at are going to be, you know, very fast ones like this, but I thought I'd kind of start you off with these. So you can also play this an octave lower, or 2 octaves lower from here down here. So that's there. So that's we're actually using position 5 of the E minor pentatonic scale. Oh, sorry. So what that is, just to recap, it's 10, 12 on the low E, 10, 12 on the B, on the A string, 9, 12 on the D, 9 to 12 on the G, 10 to 12 on the B string, 10 to 12 on the high E. But we're just using the lower 2 strings, so we're going starting on the A string. We're going 12, sorry, 10, 12, 10, and then 12 on the low E, and it's the same pattern, hammer, pull. So it's pick, hammer to, pick 10, hammer to 12, pull off to 10, and then pick 12 on the low E string. So you've got 3 octaves. We can play that same lick. One more is so that's on the high E string. We're going so that's 12 on the high E, hammer to 15, pull off to 12, and then 15 on the B. Same picking pattern and everything. In fact, you can take any grouping of 2 strings within this scale, if you know your scales well enough, and apply this lick to all of them. You know, even move it around in a linear fashion like that. So what I did there, I was on the high E string in position 5 of the E minor pentatonic, and I was going 10, 12, 10, 12, 10 on the high E, and then 12 on the B. And then I moved it up to this one we just looked at, and then another one we looked at earlier. And just finish it off with an E note there, just to kind of round it off. So that's a few fast hammer-on and pull-off ideas.